I was one of the 3 co-founders behind the biggest jewelry brand in the world, Pandora. It doesn't matter whether you're in Colombia, in South Korea, or in Canada, and anywhere in Europe, they will all know Pandora.
What is the one thing that made you being able to do all of these accomplishments?
The one skill that you need to have is I got my mom and dad to take a mortgage in their house. There was no chance of failing. And then we did it. I have absolutely no jewelry background. Now we're talking here about profit margins of 80%. I think they're doing close to $5 billion now in revenue. 83% of our revenue comes from one product. At the end of 2010, we list our company on the NASDAQ. That was the biggest listing in Denmark for 40 years. I truly believe that money is the strongest energy there is in the world. It's the worst energy there is in the world because people are willing to do anything they can to get to it. But it's also the best energy in the world because with money you can do incredible things. Money is freedom. But I also work like a maniac, like a monster. You know, I've been working like crazy my whole life. I can always outwork everybody. You always have to live your life as it's the last day of your life, but you have to do it with the responsibility that tomorrow will come. What a crazy life, Jesper. Nothing can go wrong, which was wrong because it went very, very wrong. We also have things where we see things differently as the law says. They took all my bank accounts, they closed all my credit cards, they took all my houses, they took my boats, my cars, they took everything.
Do you feel betrayed by the system?
Yeah, and I still do. We just know when we put his name in and write something negative, we just will have clicks like never before. I believe that I could make this world into a better place. My sister always say, I wish that Jesper was the Prime Minister of Denmark.
One day you're not here anymore. What is a thing or different things that you will like everyone to remember about you, even if they like you or dislike you?
I wish that the day I die, that it will...
All right, welcome to this podcast. Today's guest is someone I met a little bit over 1 year ago, one of the most impressive people I've met in my 22 years of life. He was the co-founder of Pandora CWE, which were part of Pandora, the largest jewelry business in the world. He is now suing them for more than 1.3 billion US dollars. He was the top sponsor of one of Denmark's biggest football clubs. He had his own handball team in Denmark and Germany, one of the top teams in Denmark. He had a big fight with the tax authorities where they took everything from him. They took 10 of his cars, they took his houses, they took everything from him. Last year, we recorded this podcast in Danish and it went completely viral with millions of views throughout TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, which is quite a lot considering Denmark is a country with just 6 million people. So welcome to today's guest, Jesper Nielsen, also known as Casey Jesper.
Thank you, Jakob, for the description. It sounds very hectic when you put it all together in like 2 minutes of elevator pitch, but I think you got most of it. Of course, there are millions of details to that, but in the big picture, I think you nailed it quite well there.
So if you had to introduce yourself, who is Jesper Nielsen? Who is Casey Jesper?
If I do it, I always do it in a short way. I say I was one of the 3 co-founders behind the biggest jewelry brand in the world, Pandora, which luckily has an awareness degree amongst women of 98% and amongst men very high because most of them, they loaded their little wallet into that business. So basically, I always introduce myself as one of the co-founders of Pandora.
Pandora is one of the most famous brands in the entire world, and as you just said, has a recognition degree of more than 98% throughout women. I saw even at one time in Germany and regions of Germany, it was more recognizable than Coca-Cola. How did you get started out with building a brand such as Pandora?
You can say that is the biggest achievement the 3 guys of us we did. That was actually to make this brand into, in a relatively short period of time, we made this into a very, very famous and very, very recognizable brand all around the world. It doesn't matter whether you're in Colombia or in South Korea or in Canada or in anywhere in Europe, they will all know Pandora. And I remember when we started back in 2001, that after some period of time we agreed upon in the group that we actually have a quite simple mission. Sometimes, you know, people want to make business cases into very complicated, big tasks and big different jobs you have to do. But this was actually quite simple because we could see that the new product that we have launched, the Pandora bracelets, which we are famous for, actually had a very good positive effect by almost half of the women who we presented it for. So from that day on, the mission was actually quite simple. It was just to make sure that everybody in the whole world would know about the Pandora brand. And secondly, of course, also had access to buy it. So that was, of course, the second factor of it. And I said in that way in the couple of last years, It doesn't matter where I am in the world. And I like doing that when I'm out with friends everywhere in the world. We go to a restaurant or a place and we talk about the business that I did. I said, but we can ask any girl in this room and they will all know it. Are you sure? I say, I'm quite sure that everybody knows this. And that is maybe something that is the biggest achievement and what makes me the most proud in my daily journey and the long journey that I had with Pandora that hasn't ended yet. But anyhow, that is what makes me most, you can say, proud. So when I present myself, I always present myself as one of the co-founders of the biggest jewelry brand in the world, Pandora. My job was to build the awareness, the marketing, the retail things in Europe. And I started that in around 2002, 2003. And from there on now, we're here where we are today. And still, even when I walk around any mall in the world where we are represented, we have 7,000 different locations around the world. I still feel warm around my heart when I see the Pandora brand because it is my life. It was my biggest achievement, and it is something that meant incredibly a lot to me and my family as well. So I present myself as the co-founder of Pandora, the biggest jewelry brand in the world.
I actually did a test last year after we had our podcast last year where I was out partying. I was just asking every single girl as a test with one of my friends, do you know Pandora? And we didn't have a single girl who was, no, I don't know Pandora. So I did this test myself. It was very, very crazy. And in this conversation, I'd love to hear a lot more about Pandora, which is what you are mostly famous for internationally. In Denmark, there's a lot with some tax cases you had, which were famous in the entire of Denmark. I think most people over 35 knows who you are in Denmark because of your tax case, because of your case with the football clubs in Denmark, handball clubs. So there's a lot of things. But internationally, I think it's more on the Pandora case, where you are a part of building Pandora, which pretty much everyone knows of. And also now your case where you're suing Pandora for more than $1.3 billion, which we'll also talk about here in this conversation, about why you're suing them, what happened with this case. But if we go a little bit more back in time and talk about how did you start out, where did Jesper from Denmark come from to be part of such a big business? How did you start out your working life, your professional life?
It wasn't really programmed that I should enter the jewelry business. I have absolutely no jewelry background. I still know not much about it, of course. Now I know the most basics, but still I'm not an educated goldsmith. I'm not a jewelry guy. I'm not a diamond guy. I don't come out of the business. I come out of normal trading. I used to work in retail for many years. I didn't go far in school, as all other entrepreneurs who build global brands. I didn't go far in school. I went through my high school. I went through my gymnasium, and then I basically ended it there. At that time, I wanted to be a professional handball player. I found out later that the talent didn't work. It was more a dream that it could be reality. And when I stopped that, I started to find another passion in life, and that was to make money. I have always been very fascinated about the energy behind money. And therefore, I found a way through my early 20s, mid-20s, where I got to have a franchise in a gas stations in Denmark. I was running 3 gas stations as a franchise. I always recommend young entrepreneurs to try to find something that is already a little bit regulated, so you don't have to take the whole journey from A to Z from the beginning, meaning product, logistics, sale, bookkeeping, everything. So that was you can say, a safe environment for me to learn about management, to learn about credit, debit, to learn how to build a business that could be profitable. I already had quite a success there. With 25, I bought my first Porsche. With 27, I got my house at the first row in the beach in Copenhagen. But I also work like a maniac, like a monster. I've been working like crazy my whole life. I can always outwork everybody, I always say. And when I ran my gas stations are special because they're open 365 days a year. That means you never have a day off. Which I still don't, of course, because that's a part of my DNA. And as well, they were open at that time from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 in the evening. And 3 of them at the same time I ran with 22, 23, 24. And of course, I really worked hard. I found out that when I saved money in salary, there were more for myself. If I pushed the sales, if I pushed the activities, I could really influence my own income, which I found extremely motivating. I was not making big money. I was making maybe in that time money would be 200,000-300,000 euro a year. Would maybe be like 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 in our days. But still, it really meant comparing to when I looked at my friends around me who took normal journeys, got to be a hand worker, got to get a good position in a big company or whatever, that of course I lived a completely different life than they did. I didn't have much holidays. I didn't have many days off, but still I achieved and I were willing to sacrifice these things in order to live a more free life, because money is freedom. And that I learned in my early 20s, mid 20s, that was the freedom that I was looking for in my life. Moving on from there, I got into a big retail chain. I come to a certain point in the gases where I couldn't see myself sitting, working in that environment for the next 50 years or for the next 40 years, for the rest of my life, because that's actually a place where you normally would end after some time. So now I was already there from the beginning. So I took the journeys, you can say, on the other way around. So I decided, okay, let me go out and learn a little bit about management. And there, for the first time, I had a job where I was actually hired. I had a good salary in a big Danish retail chain, one of the 3 biggest retail chains in Denmark, where I was responsible for a big area and had a lot of shops under me and up to 1,000 employees at the same time. That was when I was like 27, 28, 29, 30. And I learned a lot about working in a big organization. I saw the weaknesses of a big organization. I saw the strength of a big organization. But most of all, I found out that that was not where I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. Because I'm an entrepreneur by heart. You know, it's very hard to be put into a box like a big retail chain where there were, first of all, there was a boss above me. I don't like that.
Very corporate.
Very corporate, and I'm not a fan of the corporate world. It has to exist as it is. I think it can be done differently, which I did in my own companies afterwards. But still, it was good time for me. I learned a lot. I got to have a lot of leading responsibility. I learned to manage people from different social levels. When you recruit in the retail level, you very often recruit from a very low social level, which I learned a lot to do. I learned a lot about the empathy, how they're functioning. Worked a lot with immigrants and foreigners in my country because they were working in our stores, and I had a great relationship to them. And therefore I started. But then again, the most important thing I missed was the money, you know, because I missed my freedom just to do whatever I want to do. If you want to put yourself into a beautiful car, you put yourself into a beautiful car. I also know the price we have to pay for that. But I would say, so I was starting to look a little bit around for how could I, you know, get back into being a businessman. And that it ended up with jewelry. It could have been anything, but it ended up with jewelry where I could implement my skills that I've learned in form of management, sales, empathy, and that led to that I was looking for something that could change my life. I could feel that Denmark was little, it was too small for me. I wanted more. I had this feeling that there was something out there waiting for me. Great. I always had some fascination about Germany, because as a little country of Denmark with, as you mentioned, 6 million, you look at this big brother with 82 million and 16, 18, 20 times the economy that we have. I felt very, you know, pulled to that.
So how do you go from working in retail with gas station to suddenly being part of jewelry as I don't see you wear any jewelry.
Oh, no.
I never saw you with any jewelry before. How do you go into a jewelry company, start selling jewelry to everyone?
First of all, I think it's important that people understand that unless we build rockets or something crazy, it's all about people. So it doesn't matter so much in which industry you go into. It is mostly about getting people to function and do things in the right manner and with the right mindset. So I was basically just looking a little bit around. And again, that's also an advice for many people. Don't just take a look at some certain business. Don't specialize too much when you're young. You know, look around at the opportunities that arises in front of you. And this happened by a coincidence. You know, I was having a good friend who was actually an electrician. He was hand worker, and his uncle was in the jewelry business. They invented a new jewelry piece, not the Pandora, but another Pandora piece, and he got the license to sell that in Norway. And he knew that I was into sales, and also he said to me a couple of times, "Wouldn't you like to join me to one of these shows, one of the fairs? You have a free company car. You could drive me there, and yeah, I'll do it." And I have a look at it, and I came to it, and I looked at it. It looked very interesting, and I said, and then I started to ask him about the numbers, you know, and he of course was not very, you know, skilled with the numbers or very interested in numbers, which I am. I'm a number guy, numbers guy. So I asked him, okay, how much do you actually pay for this? We pay like €1.50 in Italy for this piece. Okay, and how much do you sell it for? Yeah, but I sell it for around 6-7 euro. I said, you say what? I said, so you buy it for 150 and you sell it for 6 or 7. And what do the jewelry store? He calculates with 2.5, so he will sell it for 18 probably. I said, so a piece that you produce for 150, the customers pays 80. And you know, I come from gasoline and I come from retail, you know, where you sell milk. And I was completely shocked because in gasoline we work with I think 2% in profit in the gas station. In the retail chain I came from, we worked with the whole program of could we reach over 20, 22, 24% profit? We were happy. And now we're talking here about profit margins of 80%. But I said, then you just have to sell a lot, was my first, yeah, I'm trying to. But he was not a very skilled sales guy. But anyhow, I looked at it and I went with him 2 times. And then I said to him, does your uncle has somebody representing him in Germany? He said, I asked him. He said, no, maybe I could represent him in Germany. So I said to myself, and he said, yeah, Jesper can try and go. So I took 2 weeks holiday from my good paid retail job. I went to Germany.
Okay, so you were still working in the retail.
I just did a holiday for 2 weeks, and I said, let me see if I can sell anything to the German, because maybe they say we already had it or we don't, you're not in the market. But I came and after these 2 weeks, I actually happened to got, I think, 3 or 5 customers. And then I started to calculate, my God, I have 3 or 5 and I worked 2 weeks. What if I work 2 months? What if I work a whole year? And each customer could maybe bring me this, and then I started, and Germany is a big country. And then I said, oh my God, I want to do this. Also because of the profits, of course. So I went back to my CEO in the retail chain. I said, I'm gonna quit my job here. He said, what are you talking about? You're number 3 in the whole business. What are you talking about? You can't quit your job. You've got to promote it in the next couple of years. No. I said, I'm gonna go to Germany and sell jewelry. He said, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, I want to go to Germany and sell jewelry. I want to do that. But I'm a fair guy, find my replacement in the next couple of months. And then I stop easily and I would start to go to Germany to sell jewelry. And after 2-3 months, I didn't hear from him. And I asked him why. I came back and said, when is my replacement come? Are you serious? He said, I thought you were just joking. No, I said, I'm stopping now. I want to go down and sell that jewelry. I planned everything now. I want to go.
Because you had a very good job for your age.
Of course.
Managing a lot of people, getting paid probably very good salary compared to the Danish salary. And then coming one day and say, hey, I'll drive to Germany and sell jewelry.
Actually, I'm still friends with him. And he wrote me many times. I think it was a very good idea. This was you driving to Germany to sell this jewelry. He wrote me many times. Later on, he became the CEO of the biggest Danish child care company, Baby Sam.
Okay.
And he then sponsored my handball team later and all this, so we kept the connection all these times, yeah. But it was quite fun and then I ended up, and then I started, the American way. Borrowed my father's car, went down. There was no chance of failing, because when I got my mom and dad to take a mortgage in their house. I had a little bit of money myself, not much. And then we did it. And later on, the story repeats itself. Boom. And in 2000, already after 3-4 months, I got in contact with the Pandora guys.
Yeah, so just to understand, you get to Germany here, by a little bit of luck and your friend and a lot of things randomly playing together, you started being interested in jewelry, figuring out the profit margin on jewelry, which is completely crazy profit margins on jewelry. You start selling it here in Germany, but this is not Pandora you're selling yet. No. This is another Danish brand.
Exactly. Little one.
Little bit brand. How do you go from that and then now to go into the Pandora? What happened?
Yeah, because it was an Italian bracelet that was actually done by some Danish guys, and it's still very famous. And I started building up a little organization. I got some sales reps. I found out that they work strictly on commission. And when people are working strictly on commission, you can take as many as you want. It doesn't cost you anything. So I slowly started. And then, of course, I was looking for more things that I could put into that machine, So already after 3, 4, 5 months, I coincidentally met the Pandora guys, which at that time was a company who made maybe €500,000 revenue.
Okay, so Pandora was already a company here.
Yeah, it was already, but very, very small,
And they were just operating in Denmark?
Yeah, yes. Just operating in Denmark, yeah. So I went to the jewelry show in Denmark, walking around there, and of course I knew nothing, and nobody knew me. So I ended up, there were other products similar to Pandora represented at the show. So I went to the different, there were like 3 or 4 that had something similar. And then I ended up at Pandora and talking to the guy who worked for Pandora, not my co-founder, but another guy. And he said, we actually would like to go to abroad one day, but we don't speak so much foreign languages, only English. But so maybe we could go to England, but I'm in Germany and I speak German, which was half true, but I do now. But so he said, okay, you can try. So I bought 10 small start kits from him, and I went to Germany and tried to sell it in. I already had some customers, and that made me easy. Still remember that the network is everything. I already had like maybe 300, 400, 500 German jewelry stores who already was selling my other bracelets. Some of them, of course, I'm a nice guy. I got related to them. So I said, I bring something completely new from Denmark here called Pandora. And they went there, and I went there with them, and they said, But I said, I give it to you for free now for 6 months to test it out, because I think this could be really great. They said, okay, why not? And from there on, we started. And what's interesting, just so people don't think that everything has to work from the beginning, that from the first 10, it was only 3 who actually got successful with Pandora in the beginning. 7 of them, they couldn't really make it work. Later on, when Pandora started to be more famous, they could make it work. So don't give up when you hit the first wall. Take it easy. Keep trying. Try with many. And then out of the 3 that was successful, I built, you can say, the whole global network of Pandora's dealers.
So you built up a lot of these things in Germany, but just to understand, Pandora is a Danish jewelry brand.
Correct.
Back here, in which year are we talking about right now?
Here we are. We're in 2003.
2003. It's a Danish jewelry brand that's selling a little bit in Denmark. Nothing special really back then. You come on board and start offering to sell some of them for them in Germany. How do you go from there to then being the co-founder of Pandora CWE, which is Central Western Europe, where you got your own markets?
Exactly. I actually just started as an independent distributor.
Okay.
With the name Casey. That's where I got my name from, yeah.
The name, okay.
My nickname, yeah. It's not many businessmen who are so blessed to have a nickname, but I am, yeah. And from there on, we started, building up the business. Me, as Casey. Pandora did their own journey. But of course, we grew fast. And we started getting new distributor, which I, of course, also helped to handle. But I was still running my own business all the way up to 2009. So of course, my company went from nothing to making 200 million euro in 2009. But it was with a company that I was not a part of, basically. But then we decided, you can say, the co-founders and our new investors, that we should all put ourselves together. Because I was running the second largest distribution unit.
So Pandora had different distributors,
exactly.
Instead of being one big company. And then when you want to do, for example, an exit and sell a company, you want to have it together. So they're buying the real thing and not just with all the distributors having their own rights. Is that correctly understood?
Correct. So basically we were like 3 huge distributors at that time in 2008 and 2009. It was Australia, it was America, and it was Europe with me. So what they did is that the investors that came into the Pandora business, that they saw, of course, that the 3 big distributors were huge players. They were 95% of the revenue. So, of course, in order to prepare themselves for a huge exit, they started to take that into their mother company. So they pretty fast took my 2 colleagues, but I resisted a little bit longer because I like to be independent. But at the end of 2009, we found an agreement with Pandora, so I became a part of Pandora and created the company Pandora Central Western Europe, which was actually just my company being Pandora. So we became a part of the big machine, and I became officially a co-founder of Pandora. So that was a transaction that led to a huge exit already the year after, where we IPO'd the business for 3.5 billion euro.
And if we go to your company before it being part of the total Pandora, how much did you do in sales? And were you on the biggest market in the total of Pandora? Can you tell a little bit about the sales you did back then?
In the beginning, of course, I was huge, yeah, because I was basically the only one, yeah. So when we started, of course, we were very small. But then as we grew, I grew very fast, very strong. So there were times maybe where I could be like 50 to 70% of the total revenue of Pandora with my company. So actually, maybe there could have been years where I sold more than Pandora, because I, of course, bought it at a lower price, and then I sold it for a higher price. I had about 60% profit when I sold it from Casey to the end consumer, to the wholesale level. And Pandora, of course, sold it cheap to me. So they had this. So there could have been years in 5, 6, 7 where Casey could have been bigger than Pandora. But then, of course, the other markets, they started to look at Germany. And we got to have really, really skilled distributors around the world. And most important was in 7, 8, 9, when it started to take off in the Americas, in US. That was when the things really took off for us. And of course, he surpassed me as the biggest subsidiary in the business. So I was the second largest subsidiary when I entered the business. I was around, in 2009 and 10, I was around 20% of the total Pandora business.
And how much revenue did you approximately generate back then?
250 million euro in Europe. Now I think the Pandora Central Western Europe unit will do 600-700 million euro. It was the Italy, Germany, Holland, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. It was these countries there. So we were a bigger part of it. But then I became, you can say, a part of the global management team, as was one of the co-founders, the founding fathers, and because I was a part of it from the beginning. And from there on, we actually looked, and Pandora has been looking into a very bright future since then. Just continuing now, the journey is, I think they're doing close to $4.5-5 billion now in revenue, and probably a profit of 25 to 28%. So it's very profitable business.
One thing which I find very interesting about Pandora is how you guys have been able to brand Pandora. Mm-hmm. If we look at a lot of jewelry businesses, it's very often the high end where they have a brand. You buy it because of the brand. You buy Cartier bracelet because it's Cartier. You buy a lot of these brands because they're very famous brands. But often if we go to a little bit of a lower price, which Pandora is also priced at, it's very rare that there's famous brands in these price ranges, and you more just, they get a lot of sales because they're good at distribution, they're good at sales, but not so good at the branding side, and it's very hard to remember these kind of brands. What did you do to brand Pandora so much and have a recognized degree in Germany, which some places were higher than Coca-Cola?
Yeah, that was where I contributed, you could say, mostly to the business. It was in these matters, because it was a very blue ocean, the jewelry business. In one way, it was very red because 80% of the sales were non-branded. You mentioned the big names; we all know them: Tiffany, Cartier, Bulgari, Van Cleef, and all these. They have their strong brands at the top of the pyramid. And then, of course, we come to the middle segment, affordable jewelry, we call it. And we found a blue ocean in Pandora because nobody actually really have been trying to brand themselves there. Many tried. What we had that they did not have was the product. We had a product that is very, very unique. It is the iPhone of jewelry because it is so brilliant made with the collectible bracelets and these things. And that, of course, led to that we could create a huge revenue due to our product that could lead us into making this into a brand. But the brand building part was, you could say, my special skill. So opening up stores, doing TV commercials, doing promotions, and that was where I really was having a good time in Pandora doing these things from 2004 to 2010, 11. And I really enjoyed building the brand. We had to make Pandora into more than just a product. We haven't really succeeded in that because everybody identified today the Pandora with the bracelets. But that's also because the bracelet is so strong and it's such a brilliant product. But Pandora is a one-product company because if you take our normal jewelry compared to other jewelry brands, we're not better. We are only special with our bracelets. And that is 83% of our revenue comes from one product. Is it dangerous? Many ask us, yeah, but not if you have a product that you cannot disrupt and that people will never stop loving because it is timeless. Pandora is timeless. Because it's a collectible jewelry, you collect unforgettable moments. So nobody should ever worry about that Pandora will die one day. It will never die.
All right, just a quick break here from one of our sponsors. If you are looking to move to the United Arab Emirates, take advantage of the 0% income tax, live a more free life here in Dubai, then check out the link in the description from FormUAE. They can help you with a complete business setup, relocation, and take care of everything for you to move here to the United Arab Emirates. And in your career, you started out being one of the youngest and biggest franchise owners for gas stations in Denmark. You are working very high job in a retail and then building Pandora. What is the one thing that made you being able to do all of these accomplishments?
Yeah, the one skill that you need to have is people. You need to be able to communicate with people and understand people and motivate them to go in your direction. And in a way, in a nice, positive, good human way, I always say, not by filling them with stupid stories or with things that is not true, and then lead and go forward yourself as the leading figure. You know, nobody outworks me in any of my company. I'm always on top of everything. I am there 24 hours. I'm responsive like nobody else. I am there all the time. They can feel me in the whole organization all the time. And that leads into that the people around you, they get trust in you, and they believe that you can do things that nobody thought is possible. And that is actually also many of the same skills when we come to that I'm using in my court case today, which is my new entrepreneurial project. And you can say that is the one thing that I found out. We always say, what is your superpower? Everybody asks when you have this. I'm not Elon Musk. I can't build a rocket. I am not Mark Zuckerberg. I couldn't invent a Facebook and make all these programming, all this. I know about people. I know how to make things work amongst people. You know, now you also know me after 1 year, and you see that I'm gathering people 24 hours, 365 around me all the time. To create networks, to create contacts. And I have this saying that many people should remember. Always know that you haven't done your best business yet. There's still a person waiting for you out there that you'll meet. You don't know, if you don't go anywhere, you're sure you're not going to meet him. But if you don't go to that dinner, you don't go to that thing, you don't do events yourself or do things, one thing is for sure, you will never meet them if you're just sitting at home. So therefore, I'm very, very aware of that. I have to use my skill in any way I can in order to do these things. And of course, Pandora was like the perfect ride for me, because the skills that I learned in my former businesses led up to what I could really contribute with in Pandora. And I really felt well in my role in Pandora until, of course, we listed the company and the corporate world took over. Of course, I didn't feel so well any longer, because I like the freedom. I like no control. Everything is under your own responsibilities. All these things doesn't work in a big machine like Pandora today.
And if we go to the next step of the timeline, you're working first, and which you went through the franchise, the retail, Pandora. You're now on top of the world pretty much with Pandora. I could imagine you're buying a lot of cars probably, spending a lot of money, enjoying life.
Airplanes, boats, football clubs.
How is it to be at there? What did you do with all of your money? I could imagine
I spent them.
Pretty good profit. What did you
spend
on?
them? Because I truly believe that money is an energy that should be spent. I don't believe in saving money. I'm not a banker. I truly believe that money is the strongest energy there is in the world. It's the worst energy there is in the world, because people are willing to do anything they can to get to it. But it's also the best energy in the world, because with money you can do incredible things. And I decided to do incredible things. I decided that besides doing the incredible Pandora brand, I decided to run one of the biggest hamburger clubs of Germany, which was very motivating for me and very exciting, very personally exciting for me. I created from bottom up the biggest and best hamburger club in the world with AG Copenhagen, and I was sponsoring my football club and was a part of running that football club as well, which is, it's not just a football club in Denmark, it's an institution. It's the biggest brand in football in Denmark.
How much did you pay for sponsoring this football club?
At that time I paid I think I paid like 200 million Danish crowns, like 25 million euro for 4 or 5 years.
And that's back 20 years ago, so that's even a lot more.
I don't really want to count that out yet, but it was a lot of money. But it didn't matter so much, because Pandora was extremely profitable, and I could see I make the money. And for myself, I never had a need to say that I have 50 million in my bank account. I believe that money is an energy that should come out and work. You always have to live your life as it's the last day of your life, but you have to do it with the responsibility that tomorrow will come. That's one of the sayings I tell everybody. So don't walk around saving your money, spend them, but always know that there comes a day tomorrow, which I always was very much aware of. I was being very, very careful. And you're talking about being on the top of my life. I can describe a situation where I felt that the whole world was made for Jesper Nielsen, because at the end of 2010, we listed our company on the Nasdaq. That was the biggest listing in Denmark for 40 years. And it was the biggest listing in Europe that year, in all of Europe. And we listed that, and we had to go to New York, to the Nasdaq, to Times Square, where Nasdaq is, and we had to go and ring the bell. And that is for me like a milestone in my life, when we were standing there, the co-founders and me, and some from the investor that bought us, who did this together. So we were standing there ringing the bell. And I remember when I went back to the hotel, we had a big dinner at the Marriott Hotel in Times Square that goes around with the views, and everything was fantastic. I laid back on my bed in the hotel in New York, thinking, what a crazy life, Jesper. You are 40 years old. You have a dream life. You have 2 hamburger clubs. You have a football club. You run the biggest jewelry company in Europe, Pandora Central Western Europe, was the biggest jewelry company. You have 4 houses. You have a beautiful house in Mallorca. You can support your family 24/7. You have 10 cars. There wasn't a car that I could dream of that I didn't have. You have a 30-meter yacht in Mallorca. You have your own private airplane. What is this? It's a dream. And I thought the whole world was meant to make me happy. So that was one of the really peaks of my life. And I thought, nothing can go wrong, which was wrong, because it went very, very wrong. But at that time, I thought I was, I couldn't be beaten.
What were your net worth approximately back then, if you have any idea now?
Maybe around 250 million.
Euros?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think that would be around that, yeah. And I couldn't look into any problems. The Pandora business was booming, it was exploding. We were just on the start of the journey. Maybe we did at that time, I think we did maybe, let's put it like 1 billion euro, 1.2 billion euro revenue. But we will go to 5 as they are now. We could see it. We could look, we knew the business better than anyone else. So, and I owned 50% of the biggest jewelry, 49% of the biggest jewelry business in Europe with my agreement with Pandora. So I was just looking into making more and more and more money and having a great job, and didn't see any threat anywhere. But then,
then suddenly you experienced probably the highest high you can imagine.
I paid the hardest price there is.
And then you had the lowest low, which is
everything. They took everything from me.
Then the tax authorities in Denmark came and pretty much took everything from you.
Not pretty much.
Which, every single thing you had. Which years later you actually won the court case, and you got. They saw you didn't do anything wrong. Can you explain a little bit what happened here with the tax case?
Yeah, it is a crazy story. They see that we list our company successfully, and already the week after they knock on our doors in my company and say, we want to look at all documents 5 years back, especially everything related to Jesper, and see if there's anything we could, because when they read in the front page of the newspapers what they did when we listed Pandora and sold it, basically, they listed that I got, I think 1 billion or 2 billion they wrote in the front page. And of course, the tax authorities are also reading newspapers. So why don't we go to this guy and find something? Because if we find something with him, he can pay.
So that's normal procedure. They see a lot of money. They want to see, hey, can we find something?
But I was not so worried about it, because I just went through 2 full due diligences. First, when I merged my company with Pandora, and secondly, when we listed the company. So I had people running around checking every contract, checking everything there is. And of course, they would have raised a flag if there was something that we did wrong or anything. So I was not worried about it. So I say, you're welcome, come on in. My mother was working the company. She took care of them for 6 months, and everything was actually okay. I said, what can they find? And then they called me for the first meeting. That was that will be mid-11. Because
2011.
Mid-fall 2011. I said,
So of course, that's 1 year, 1.5 years after going public.
Yeah. So they came, and then they investigated, and then 1 year after they came, and I said okay. And of course they were very intrigued to meet me. As you said, I'm a big public figure in Denmark. At that time, I was known as the man behind Pandora, because they didn't know the 2 of my 2 co-founders. So I was the name also because I was involved in the biggest football club in Denmark. I had the biggest handball team in Denmark. So of course I was, very, one of the 5 most acknowledged businessmen of Denmark. So of course they met me. And the first thing the guy said from the taxi, you have to know I'm a fan of the other football club in Copenhagen and Jørgen. I said, it's okay, my best friend is actually the chairman there, so it's fine, I said.
And in Denmark there is a big rivalry between these teams. A lot of it is for fun, like rivalry, but there's also the hardcore fans which actually dislikes the other team.
Really hard.
And was this more for fun, or was this a serious?
I don't know. He said it, and I said, "Is that going to make it more expensive for me?" I said, "For fun, yeah. You can look at it afterwards yourself." He said, "Yeah." Okay, and then he presented his case. He said, "We found around 500,000 euro that you have to pay extra." And I said, okay, that's fair enough. You know, I ran this business for 10 years. You know, yeah, a little bit went to your way, a little bit in our way. They would look through every single document. There was 27,000 pieces.
That's
of paper.
the official like tax authorities in Denmark.
Yeah. So they looked at everything, and I said, well, that's fine. You know, 500,000 is okay. You did a great job. You know, and I had a lot of money, so I said, no problem. And then I started to get out of the table and say, but we also have things where we see things differently as the law says. And I smiled at him. I said, no, come on. How do you want me to? I could, for instance, say that all the sponsorships you did in Germany for Pandora, or the marketing you did for Pandora in Germany, all you invested in your football club and your hamburger club to build this business, that is just for you personally, and that would make it into personal income for you. And you cannot deduct the VAT, and you know what the tax percentages is in Denmark. It's up to 60-70%. So if I did that, you owe me 100 million, he said, euro. I said, what are you talking about? I said, you know, I promoted Pandora, and I promoted my businesses, and I promoted everything through that. It's a big business I'm running here, and of course I'm investing big time in marketing. Yeah, but if I, for instance, said, and maybe sometimes we don't always see things as the law says.
So he can go away from the law and say and get you from something which is not even from the law.
Let's be honest, he invented it to pressure me. And I said, no, I'm not going to go that way, I said. And I went really ballistic. And at that time, I had a very high self-confidence. So I said, I went ballistic, and I had two advisors. They said, stop. They said, stop this meeting. Jesper, come out here. And they say, we take over from here. We talk to this guy. We know what he's doing now. And I went completely ballistic, because how can you see things differently than the law says? How can I run a business if I follow the law?
You're following the law, and then he's coming and say, oh, but maybe the rules here are different than what the law is saying. So how should you be able to then know what to do and what to follow?
So for another 6, 7, 8 months, we negotiated with the tax authorities, and they gave us an offer of 44 million. If we paid that, we'll get free. And my advisor said to me, Jesper, you know, let's take it. You know, they can really make life difficult for you in the future. And I said, but we can't just pay them that. Do it, and then we find a way to get you to Switzerland or to get you out of Denmark, because now they're gonna hunt you forever. Yeah. Okay, I said, yeah, okay. But then they said to me also, but I think we have a really big chance to win these cases. They say, so see it as a loan to the state with a high interest, because they're going to pay 9% interest when you put the money in there. So we will not guarantee you, but we think we have a really big chance to win these cases in front of the judges. I said, okay. But then they came back with a new suggestion that changed the whole system, and that was, they say, I had to say myself that I paid too less, because then I can't go to court with it afterwards. And that was, of course, a trick from them. And of course, my advisor said, you can't do that, Jesper, because that will take you away from the possibility to go to the court and get your money back. So they said, Jesper, you can't do that. That we cannot advise you to do, because they even said in these conversations, which we had in writing on mails, that they didn't think that they would have a very big chance to win these cases. So therefore, they will try to block that we even could get it to court afterwards. But if I said myself to the tax authorities, I paid too less, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, then I can't appeal it afterwards, of course. And then I said to them, okay, but what's going to happen now? I have to move my money to Switzerland. I have to do whatever. No, it's not. It's a civilized country, this country. So take it easy. Let's see what they do now. Yeah.
How do you feel in this moment after paying huge amounts of money to Denmark, building a business, employing a ton of people? I mean, you did it in Germany, but a part of it
I had a whole business. It was a Danish business.
You had it in Denmark as well. How do you feel like that Denmark then comes and say, hey, you owe us all of this money without any real reason behind it?
Yeah, I know what you try to say, but it takes no room, because you don't get any credit for it. You get zero credit unless they see you as a criminal, because you make so much money. But I never did anything wrong. Later on, as you also mentioned, I won both my cases after fighting 6-7 years in both of them. I won it in Supreme Court. And of course, they were destroying my life completely for these years, because what they then did when I said, okay, then I don't worry about it, no. But what they did is then they prepared the most mean attack you can imagine, because then they took up the demand so it's so high that it overwent my net worth, meaning that they actually said, I can't pay. And then they have a reason to take and freeze every asset I have globally. And I didn't know what was going on because I was just living a life like so. 19th of July 2012, they had prepared that, and then they attacked. They came Friday morning, and they took and possessed everything I owed. They took all my bank accounts. They closed all my credit cards. They took all my houses. They took my boats, my cars. They took everything. And of course, that was a very, very crazy experience for me, the most crazy experience I ever tried in my life. That's maybe the worst day of my life, the 19th of July 2012, because I had no idea what was going on. None of my credit cards were running, nothing was working, and I just sat there and I couldn't move at all. And I didn't know what was going on because they don't answer the telephones on the weekend, So it was a very, very crazy experience for me.
Wow.
But when I went back to Denmark, I borrowed a friend's credit card to buy plane tickets to go back to Denmark to find out what the hell is going on. And then I went in there Monday, and then they started to explain to me what it is that they did.
And at this point, there has been zero court case. There's been zero thing that is saying Jesper has done this. They are just having the suspicions, and then because they have raised the money so much, which they say you own, then they can go ahead and freeze everything.
At that time, there was a division in Denmark who had these tools, but due to my case later on, this division was closed.
So they changed that over.
They changed that due to my
case.
You? Yeah, due to my case, they closed it because I had to go back. I had to start to find another way. But then after some times, I gained a little bit of strength again, and I started to find out what actually happened. And I got some medias to have a look at it, and that led to that about 1 year after, they put a commission looking at my case. The Danish government did that. And then ended up giving me a huge apology for the things, but they still thought that I owed them the money. So it didn't change anything for me. So in 2013, I get an excuse from the Danish government or the Danish tax authorities, from the CEO, saying what we did to you and how we threatened you through this case and everything we did around it was wrong.
I think you're the first person, is that correct, that got like a apology
10
like
pages.
That, a full-on apology.
But they were under pressure from the political side, and they didn't mean it. It was only because the politicians wanted it, And then, of course, it came about but they said that in the 2 last lines of this 10 pages apology, that they still thought that I owed them the money. So that didn't change my situation. They still blocked all my assets, all my funds, everything. And then the long journey started for me to try to win the tax cases. But it's very difficult to fight when they just took everything you own. You can imagine how much lawyer cost is followed in these cases. It was completely overview. But luckily at that time, as when I started Pandora or started other business journey, I didn't know how hard it would be, because then it would have been almost impossible to start it. But I thought I could move the world at that time. I still believe I can. But I just started fighting, and fighting from stone to stone, because as I said to my family, I can't promise you that we will win these cases because I don't know how the systems work. I never had a tax case of that size. It was 2 of the biggest tax cases that we ever had against a private person in Denmark. But I will promise you that I will fight like an animal to get us in front of some independent judges who has the competence to free speak us. But whether they're going to do it or not, I don't know how corrupt this country is, I said. But I will fight, and I'll get us in front of these judges. I don't know how to get there. I don't know how this works because I never did it before. But I'll find a way. That's the mindset of an entrepreneur who believes he can build a Pandora, make the biggest handball team in the world, and never gives up. So I said, I don't know how I'm going to get there, and then it got really dirty from the tax authorities side. They kept postponing. They didn't want to put me in the court, and all kind of things. And at the end, I got the Prime Minister of Denmark to help me. He couldn't, of course, help me on the case because he can't interfere in a case, but he helped me to get in front of judges, because what they did after they said that I still owed them the money, was that they just didn't put me in front of a judge. So in that way, I was just sitting there for 3 years looking. And they said, no, there's new information in the case. Which new information? I asked them every time. But there's new information in the case, so we don't put it to court yet. But I'm just sitting here burning my ass off, And you took all my money, you took everything I had. So I was in a very, very difficult situation. But there's only one thing to do, and that is to fight. I don't know how the hell I did it. But at the end, I won my first case in 17 and the last case in 18. So 6 years.
So you won both of the cases?
I won both and was free spoken for everything. But of course, the cost mentally, as a human being, my family, and for everybody, and how they completely tore my name as a businessman apart in these, because who can ever believe as a normal human being in a country like Denmark that you would just invent something? Because as I said, it was just something that was invented. And when we finally got in front of the court, it was so ridiculous. The court case took very short time. And then the judges said, what the hell are you talking about? He didn't do anything wrong. But that was not the difficult part of it. The difficult part was to get there, because your opponent will do anything they can not to bring you in front of the judges who has the competence to make the right decision.
That is what I think is called lawfare, where they
Exactly.
go ahead, take all of your money, and they don't even let you really do a court case, and you cannot even pay
Destroy
really for your
my
lawyers.
reputation.
And then they just win pretty much by not letting having any fight at all. Actually,
There's hundreds of details into it. Also, when they did it, they also leaked my court case, tax case to the press. To the tabloid press in Denmark. So I was accused. They wrote I go to jail and everything, and I never ever did anything wrong besides creating Pandora and doing what every normal human being would do.
And even when you then won the case, you ended up losing so much money, because what I could understand is they went ahead when they took everything you owned. They took your villas, your 10 cars or how many cars you had, your boat. Yeah. And then what they do is, because they are obviously not a car dealer, so they go ahead, sell the car very cheap.
Fire sale, it's called.
Yeah, what is it called?
A complete fire sale. And I didn't even, calculate how much I lost in that. Because
so then they sell all of your cars, everything.
They also changed that law.
Okay, they also changed that after. And then they go ahead and give you the money back, but only the money from what they sold. So if you buy the property for, let's say, 5 million euros, they maybe sell it for 3 or 4
million.
They sold for 2 million euros.
2.2. So actually, I had a property for 5 million euros. They sold for 2.2. And, but that's the worst part with actually my Pandora shares, but that's another story again. But, you can't to move on from this, because this makes you crazy in your head when you think about these things. But I took many bullets for all of you, because in Denmark, because now the division doesn't exist anymore. This law has been changed, and they're a little bit more careful, but already like 2, 3, 4 years after I saw them doing the same things. So they had to say sorry, but they didn't mean it,
Do you feel betrayed by the system?
Yeah, and I still do. I'm still fighting with them about many. They are hunting me every time I open up a new company. I was taking out for control every third month, and it's already difficult to build a business. But if you're having this on your throat all the time, it's hard.
What's the one thing about the system that most people doesn't understand and misunderstand by the system?
But the most dangerous thing is that you can't talk to anybody. You're just looking into a big wall. And you can't really talk to anybody about sitting down, leading a normal conversation and trying to find out a solution about things, which we as businessmen are used to. There's always a solution. Let's sit down, let's find a solution so we can all move on. They don't care about moving on because they live from the case. They're not interested in closing the cases. So you're sitting there trapped. Unfortunately, that has been taking a lot of energy out of my life. But I also learned a lot, and I'm still not that old. I think there was a reason why I had to learn all these things about how the system is working, how the states are functioning and all this, which is something that today, of course, made me into a very wise person. And leading up again to the thing that we're going to talk about later, the biggest court case in Denmark ever. Yeah.
And if we go back to the systems here, which I've learned so much about, you just said, do you think overall with the system and state, now we can use Denmark as an example, but I think the system and state is very similar in other countries in Europe as well. Do you think it's an overall positive or negative?
I think Europe is looking into big problems in the future. I think the Americans are trying to fix it now. Because the bureaucracy is killing it all. Fraud, corruption in the governments, they take so much tax money away from us. In general, in Denmark, I think I just saw a new survey saying that we were the highest tax country in the world, with 56%. And where are all these money going, And they take 25% VAT. They take a fee on every single little thing that you do or say. I would like somebody really to look into these books, a very skilled businessman, and say how we could do better. And could we do more for our people? I also have old parents who, they don't get enough treatment. And I think that's embarrassing for a country like Denmark, that we have so much at our disposal because we take so much from the people. That is the system. We can't change that. but then we also have to deliver much better to the people living in that country and not having to give them all these problems that we see now in many European countries. I think that is a disgrace. And I think that if Europe doesn't change character, and I think they will look into big problems. And that's because of the states, unfortunately.
But the one thing people always say is, yeah, but we need more money in the country to give all of these services. But then now I live here in Dubai, where we pay 0% income
it's
tax,
incredible they can do
and
it.
I can say the safety here is like it's one of the most safest cities in the whole world. I feel the service, the roads, everything is much better here. So what is the problem here with the system in Europe? Why they're getting so much money? Where is the money? Like, why is it not as good in Europe as, for example, Dubai?
I also, have been a lot in this part of the world as well, and I travel the whole world, of course, as a global entrepreneur, and I see here a very, very remarkable system. And the question that you raised there is how do they do it? How do they make this work? Because instead of trying to, look down on them and talk bad about them, let's look into how the hell do they do it? Because I think we could learn a lot from that, actually, if we go into the detail to see how does it actually work here. I haven't searched deeper into that, but I can just say, as you're right, the safety is crazy, and the services are
clean everywhere as well.
But it is, for me, in many ways, a fantasy world.
Yeah.
And why don't we look? Because I think the Europeans and the Americans in our part of the world really still has a chance to make it up again. The Asians are running 200 miles an hour. They are pushing it hard forward now. Yeah. And I think the world is very, very interesting times that we're going on. And I'm a very optimistic man in terms of the future and the world. I'm not so optimistic about the European states right now. I don't think we're going to see much innovation from them in the future. And of course, I care about Denmark, but Germany is my second home country. And I see that they lost a lot of things. They are looking into a car industry that is going to be bombarded now from the Chinese, And their whole core of Germany was the production. And that is not so strong anymore as it used to be. German quality, German production, they are brilliant at these things. Mm. But they killed their own, fat cow by acting like that. But so I think we look into a very, very interesting, and I don't mind after I finish my court case to be a part of that future. I believe that I could make this world into a better place. And it's not that wrong, but my sister always say, I wish that Jesper was the Prime Minister of Denmark, because then she knows that everybody would be treated fairly and kindly. And the world would be fair, and nobody would be cheated, and nobody will have to do things they don't have to do.
Maybe that's a new chapter after the court case.
Yeah, politics is hard. Yeah.
So if we go to the court case now, I think we have a lot of the timeline here of you building working even also before Pandora, building Pandora, building it to $1 billion company.
Yeah.
And then
in the meantime, I did companies in order to generate cash to run my court cases. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go back, how does all of this start? In 2010, you are what is it called, merging with the rest of Pandora.
I was at the top of my life.
You're at the top of your life, and you are selling your stocks. You're selling the rest of Pandora. Yeah. Can you explain exactly what happens here with your sale of Pandora, CWE? Your
what the problem is, why we're still sitting here in a court case 15 years after.
Why are you in a court case with your own company? What happened here with all
It's actually very simple, Jacob. It's a very simple case. They wanted to take over my company case and make that into a part of the Pandora business. I saw a potential in that as well. So we merged the two companies. They got 51%, I got 49%. And then we agreed upon that I should have half the profit for the next 10 years. And if it would have been sold in the meantime, then it would be replaced by an agreement where I would get 5 + 3, like 8 years of profit, and a big upfront payment for doing it. So basically very simple, and I looked into a very bright future. As I said, Pandora was a bombastic business. My part of the Pandora business was the second largest subsidiary, up 20% of the total global business. So I was, of course, very, very optimistic in terms of the agreement that we made. And we agreed upon, when we made it, this agreement that we made has a value around 250 million euro. I then decided, that was a mistake in my life, during 2011 to step down of my position as the CEO for Pandora in Europe, and wanted to do 100% my sports teams. I couldn't function so well in the corporate world, but I didn't see any danger in it because the business was really good and was running. It was just me who was the problem.
So you stepped out here, you sold your shares. You made an
I
agreement.
already sold them.
Yeah, you made an agreement where you
Yeah.
get some payment up front. How much was that payment up front?
50 million.
50 million euros.
Yeah.
And then you'll get the profits for the next
10 years.
10 years,
Yeah.
but in an agreement over the next 5.
5 plus 3 if we were sold in the meantime.
Okay.
And we got sold because we public listed the company.
Okay, so then that's where you're gonna be getting the profits or half of the profits for the next 5 years plus a free year extra as that
So
as a
8
bonus.
years.
So 8 years in total, and then you just step down. You think,
Yeah.
okay, I'll get a lot of money here in a couple of years. I already got my 50 million euros.
Everything's fine.
What happens here after the years then?
So everything was fine. So I left the company, everything was fine. And then already in the next annual report they made, they suddenly said that they owed me only half. And of course, I didn't understand it because the business was running really good. And I left with the biggest quarter ever. I was halfway through 2011. And then they decided to cut down what they owed me. And of course, I didn't understand. I got a little bit pissed of it because it was destroying my companies. Because my capital was these agreements that I had, that a public listed company, C25 company, which is the biggest index in Denmark. It's one of the biggest companies in Denmark as well. So I asked him, can I see it? Can you show to me why it should be? We won't show you anything. And then I, of course, get suspicious and say, why you do things and we're partners, why don't you want to show it to me? We don't want to show you anything because then you can say to, then you've got to be an insider and blah, blah. I said, but okay, let's take it easy, I said. And then the agreement continued and they kept writing down on what they owed me. And I said, could you give me an explanation for that? Because your whole total business is moving like never before. All your subsidiaries are burning with high results, but you say my subsidiary is losing money. So we came to 15 where they had to pay me. And then they just sent me a letter, of 2 papers, say there's no money for you. Basically, they just say, fuck you.
All right, just a quick break here from one of our sponsors, Thyssen Ads. If you're an e-commerce owner and you're looking for the best possible Google Ads partner, then check out Thyssen Ads. There will be a link in the description. So here in 2015, you're supposed to be getting your payment.
200 million.
200 million euros approximately if the things were going how you projected. And they come to you and say, hey, we didn't make the profits.
They didn't make any money.
But how can this happen? This is because it's a daughter company of the big company. So you're getting a part of the daughter company and the official company. Here you can see the numbers from.
Yeah.
And how were the numbers looking for the big company?
Incredible. And the other subsidiaries, incredible.
So just the one which were...
There were 6 subsidiaries and I unfortunately got the wrong one, supposedly. But I didn't understand it and they didn't want to show it to me. And always remember in your life, when people don't want to show it to you, they're always lying. So because if you had nothing to hide, you can just show it. And they hide it behind stupid lawyer terms as confidentiality and blah, blah, blah. This is all just bullshit. It's all bullshit. There is where your entrepreneurial nose gets into this and say, if somebody's telling you, no, but we can't show it to you because it's confidential, they're lying. That's rule number 1. I learned that over the period, also with the tax authorities and blah, blah, blah. So I, of course, was also running my tax case at that time, so I didn't have so much energy to do so much about it. But still, I opened up a case against them and said, we have to look through it. And then they started all kind of maneuvers, not showing me, doing all kind of Christmas lawyer games. And I didn't understand, why don't we just sit around the table, you show it to me, for God's sake, what is the problem?
So they're saying they don't make any profits for these years. Just to get some comparison, how much profits, because when you had the numbers before you left the position, and how much profits were you making then?
Around 40-50 million euro a year.
So you're making 40 to 50 million euros per year, and then suddenly when you need to get payment and you cannot see the papers anymore, then there is not any profits
and
anymore.
We won't tell you why.
And you cannot see any papers on it, and it's only from this date.
Yeah.
What happened again after let's say in 2016 when the agreement was running out? Did they make profit again?
No, they went up to 100 million profit.
100 million. So just in these years,
so they went
no
like
profit.
boof, 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 and then boof. So it was ridiculous, and that's also why it's been running all the time, because there's no logic to it. And since they don't want to explain it to anybody, it's very difficult for us to believe them. So of course, what happened was that I put a case and it was going. And then when I won my last tax case in 2018, I switched 100% and went for them, of course, because now I had the energy and the time and the focus. First, I had to save the tax case, and then I turned my face around and said, Pandora, I'm coming after you now. So then we went to the arbitration court, and there was a lot of things going on. They hired the president's son 1 week before we had to go to court. So he was impartial, so he couldn't, and that costed us a year. So they did all kind of crazy tricks when
and
we
that
had
means because you cannot go to a court case because he is
his son is working for the company,
affiliated with the company,
of course.
And then you have to delay it.
And then you have to find a new president of the court.
Pretty random just happening.
And then when we then came to the court case, the first one where they had to get the verdict that they had to show us all the papers. Because what the first arbitration went about is that they had to show us the documents. It makes no sense. Why don't you want to show us the documents? Then they got a verdict that says you have to show the documents. And but in that court case, their lawyer got a bad neck,
Okay, so they have to delay it again.
So it was all just bullshit from day one, and it's very bad behavior, we're two partners. Why don't we just sit around the table and you show it to me? Why we have to do all these back and forth? But of course they know that I was weak financially, so they hoped that they could drain me, so I wouldn't find the money to continue the case. But I'm an entrepreneur, so of course I don't give up by the first gate. I continue. And then actually they managed through their good skills and bad lawyer work from our side that they managed that I was not allowed to see the numbers that they presented to the independent auditor. And that was a mistake because we didn't know how hard and how much they actually cheated. But they continued their cheat towards the independent auditor who has to look through all the numbers, and he couldn't find it. So he came out with the verdict and said, I can't find it. I don't think they did anything wrong.
Is that because they did a good kind of work with the papers?
Very well done. Very well. It's fraud on the highest level, And we had to give up. So in 2021, I had to give up. July 2021, I had to accept that for the first time ever in my life, I lost a case, which I don't like. I don't like to lose sports games. I don't like to lose a customer. I don't like to lose big court cases, but there was nothing to do. I was told, it's confidential, yes, but you're not allowed to see it, blah, blah, blah. So I was basically sentenced to death without being told what I did wrong.
By your own company.
By my own company. Very bad behavior. But that's another thing. But then I had to forget about it. I had to move on. I started a new company and move on in my life until crucial things happened in my life 2 years ago, where I got the smell of that something was wrong because I saw a post on LinkedIn that indicated that the results that they have shown to us in the arbitration was wrong. And then I started to dig really deeply, and then I managed, after some time, to get the former management of Pandora to give me the right documents of what it actually looked like. We called that a whistleblower. Okay. So after strong and long negotiations they were of course very afraid to give it to us. But we secured them through lawyers and security people that nothing would happen to them. So at the end, like 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years, I got the documents. I got 3,000 documents from inside Pandora that they never showed to anybody.
And this is papers showing what happened in these years.
So the real results, of course, not these fake ones they sent to us.
And what are these papers showing?
Billion kroner of profit. It actually had a profit of more than 200 million euro in the period. And they told to me it was minus of 60 million. So of course we got the right numbers. And then of course I directly approached the board and the management of Pandora and said, why the hell am I sitting with these documents here? Why you didn't show that in the court case? And of course I had not had an answer since then because they can't reply to that.
So they're not responding on it?
No, so now of course we had to go to court. So we are back in the arbitration. The arbitration opened the case again because of course they can see something is wrong here. Why didn't we see these numbers in the first court case? So now and they did all kind of dirty tricks again, like because they don't want to go. They blocked my social media accounts. They hacked my mail. They blocked my business accounts in Europe. They bank accounts. They did everything they could now to stop me from being able to pay because such an arbitration is very expensive. Costs more than €1 million. So we had to pay that, of course, to get back to court. But of course, they hoped they could drain us and keep hiding the truth. But the truth is the truth. We have tons of witnesses. We have documents. We have everything. And they won't explain to us why there's more than 2 million crowns missing. 250 million they removed out of the accounts, more 260 million they removed out of the accounts. And they call it now, they try to explain to because the medias in Denmark, there's more than 60 newspaper articles written about it. They ask him, why do we have these two? And they call it a markup. and it doesn't say anywhere in the contract, and you could also have told us from the day one that you wanted to implement a markup. But it's because we found out now, of course.
How were they able to present you different numbers than the documents you're talking about with these numbers? What is going on in between here? Do you know that?
Yeah, but it's because they basically, they faked the numbers that they presented to us. And they made it in a way so that the their auditors, they allowed them to write off their responsibility. And you can basically get an accountant to do anything you want him to do if he can write off his responsibility. But what they didn't do, they didn't send us that he wrote off his responsibility. That was the fraud. That they actually presented accountings for us that we thought was audited. But it turned out it was not. And that was what we found out later on in the procedure, because we couldn't understand how they come about the auditors. But then we found out by interviewing the auditors and by getting them to testimony. The court, you can ask through the court that they have to get testimonies, and then they directly wrote that they hadn't seen the numbers. It was just numbers that was given to them by Pandora. They never checked them. So therefore it was a very, very well organized fraud. And they did everything right. If I would not have found out through these former management of Pandora Central Western Europe, I would never have found out about it.
How can this happen with such a big company?
Yeah, it's terrible. But you don't worry about these are the worst guy you can imagine. It's not Pandora who did it. It was the guys who was buying Pandora from us at that time. They are deeply criminals, these guys. It is the private equity guys. It is the people who is not in it for the business. They buy hundreds of companies. They don't give a shit about people. They only care about money. So they have not even blinking their eyes when they're doing frauds like this. And they will do anything they can afterwards now to stop it from getting exposed. Yeah. But they will have to face court now, because we are 6-7 months away from the court. We will go in civilian court already in 8th to 11th of June, and the arbitration date, the tribunal has already been set. The judges has been appointed. So it's just a question of time before they have to stand in front of the judges. And then it's going to be exactly as ridiculous as it was in my tax cases. It's not going to be a long court case, because there's nothing to discuss, because they did it. But the fight here again, and that's of course why I have been trained for this, the fight is not to come in front of judges, it's to get in front of the judges, because they're trying to stop you with all their legal dirty tricks they can until you get there. And always remember, the one trying to block with the dirty legal tricks, that's the persons who are cheating. It's a good lesson I learned in my life. It's not difficult in life. Because if they had no problem with it, why don't you just do a completely normal court case with us where everything will work? But no, they have to discuss whether the sun is going to be blue or green or yellow today, They discuss everything about it. And then they do things that they know is completely ridiculous, but they just want to win time to see if they can get out of it, see if they can drain you for money, so you can't continue the case. It's a very, very simple strategy they're doing. But they got the wrong guy, because I'm a killer. And just ask the tax authorities, just ask anybody. Jesper never gives up.
So you'll never give up on this case?
I'm so far now. I reached my point. I want to tell you, when I had to open the case, they did everything they could to kill me. I've never seen an attack on a single person like that in Denmark. They were blocking as I said, they were blocking my social medias. They sent cyber attacks on my social medias. They hacked my mails and sending messages to everybody, don't help him, don't help him. They blackmail and pressed blackmail my lawyers. They said, get away from him, don't do it. And they're using all their force and all their powers and all the resources of the big guys in the business world. But you know what? I fought the state. I'm not afraid. And they're not as dangerous as the state, I can tell you. Because these guys, they have limits. The state didn't. So I can feel pressure, but the pressure was maybe only 50% of what the state could do to you. So don't be afraid of these guys. Be more afraid of the state, because they are really powerful. But I fought through them. So I believe that, and I of course, what I said, that always my sister and my brother-in-law and my mom and dad, they say, I think it's soon time for a little bit of Jesper's magic powder. And that is when I come with some crazy idea. Like, for instance, doing this crowdfunding for the whole case. Because right now I have 4,000 people who have sold a little bit of the court case for. And that is, of course, a way that we have never seen before in Denmark, that somebody's crowdfunding. But I said, this is the way we can fight a big company like Pandora. We gathered a lot of people behind me because I am a very controversial person in Denmark. As you said, if you're over 35, you know me. You like me or you dislike me. But you have an opinion. And that's what's very important. You have an opinion. And I have many who are huge fans of me. Of course, through my football teams, through my sports teams, through different, when they got to meet me, they know what I'm like. I'm a straightforward guy. I'm not cheating. I'm honest. I'm hardworking, and I'm to be believed in. And of course, I had 4,000 people who now put their savings into this case so far and got us to the judges now. As I said, I had many other opportunities because my case is very strong. Of course, Pandora will influence the media in Denmark to say, no, Jesper is a very bad guy. He's very bad, and all this, and it's fine. I know that they're going to do it because they're very powerful people. But I also know the truth. So I just keep on holding tight on the substance, on the material, and keep on doing it. And I got some big companies from outside of Denmark that want to help me running the case. It's called litigation. I found out how that worked. Of course, I investigated how do you win these cases. And then I talked to 3 big companies, the 3 biggest players in the world, and they all want to take and run the case. But they asked me 50% in fee. So 50% of the outcome they would take. And you said, right, the money we are talking about is 1.3 billion now because of interest and replacements and all different kind of things running through the years for 15 years. So of course, I looked and they said 50%. I said 50%, and we're talking about you're going to get $650 million to run a court case. I said, I'm an entrepreneur, I said, that can't be true. Can we make a cap of it maybe or something? Let's say 250 million or something. That's fine with me. No, 50% is the price. I said, I can do better than that. First of all, I'm an expert in running court cases. I just beat the tax authorities twice. I have a strong team behind me, and I could maybe do some crowdfunding. I have many rich friends. So let's start just to sell small shares into it. And that led to that I started this crowdfunding campaign that I'm doing now. And that's really, really, and the same is, I think I sold now maybe 10%. That means I still have 40% to sell. And that will mean that in the next couple of months, years, and when the case is running, I'll go out and sell up to 50% and have a lot of people helping and supporting me instead of 4 rich lawyers sitting in New York or London taking in the whole money like the world always is, It's always these guy who takes in the big fees. No, I say, I can run it myself, trust in the entrepreneur. He built Pandora. He won 2 tax cases. He can also beat these guys, and you can be a part of it. And I love doing that because that's a completely other way to do things that people normally do. And I love that. So that's why I'm inviting everybody in the whole world now to come in, take a little cut, put some savings that you don't put so much money that you can't lose them. Put extra money that you have in and be a part of this and get your money back 6, 8, 10 times when we're winning. Follow us, support us, be a part of our community. We are fighting, we are informing, and you can be a part of the biggest court case in the world between a private person and the brand he built himself ever. We have seen court cases this size before, but this is by far the biggest court case ever in the world between a private person and a company.
And if we go here with the whole Pandora case, wanted to hear a little bit on this as well. So it was not just you, but actually your whole family against Pandora. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because your family also had a percentage in the business.
We split the business. I had 50% and my family shared the
rest. With your mom and your sister.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest period for you in the whole case of Pandora here, both personally but also as a family?
When we lost, 2021. We're a family who don't like losing. And I don't like it. Was the first time ever I lost, because normally I don't lose, because you have not lost until you give up. So I actually gave up for the first time ever in my life. And, that was a life-changing situation for me because I always believed that I could fought me out of any situation by just keep going because I outwork everybody, work harder than everybody, The Duracell rapper, they called me back in Denmark, because I'd never stop. I just continue and I continue. I find new solution, Jesper's magic powder, creativity, and all these things. But this time I was chess mate. And that was very difficult for me. But I worked a lot on myself in that period. And I also got the chance to, to go a little bit deeper spiritual into my own, to myself. I became much more Christian than I was before. And I believe in the bigger purpose of doing things right, So even though that I had many chances in my life to do things wrongly, but I never did.
If you could go back in time, is there anything you would have changed here?
Yeah, I would never have left Pandora. I should not have left Pandora in 2011. I was too inexperienced at that time, and you cannot leave a company when they still have a chance to still should pay you money. But I could not see, because Pandora is such a crazy business, I couldn't see in any way that this could go wrong. But it did, because they were ice cold cheaters, and because I don't have it in myself. It's very difficult for me to imagine that other people will do it. So I don't have the empathy to put myself in the position like these guys from this equity where they just fucking cheat me, And that is a learning for me that I like to stay in control now.
Do you feel any kind of trust problems after this with people, with agreements?
No, I just look a little bit. I don't work much in control, and I trust people generally. I work other sides. Some people say you have to earn trust. I work the other way around. I trust people as a general, and then I see if they start to do things different.
I think that's a very Danish way of doing it.
Yeah,
in general, in Denmark, we have very good trust with each other, which is one of the things I love about our culture.
Yeah, that is
until someone misuses it.
Yeah, but then you have to, of course, be aware of it. But and that's something that I'm going to work on in the future as well. I'm going to make this to a better place. I have big plans after my court cases. I have big plans of what I want to do with my life, and that is trying to make this place into a better place. Try to teach young businessmen to do things right, and not run around, do these cheats. And then maybe I could also be the voice against when people have been cheated around the world. That I could, with my team of litigation experts and my team of lawyers. I have a huge team of lawyers now working for me in these cases. And I run them myself, the cases. It's not like, it's my project. It's like when I built Pandora, or when I'm running the cases myself. I know every single little writing. I know every little single detail in this court case, because there's only one person who can win that case, and that's me. And if I'm going to lose it, I will say afterwards, I did everything I could. And it was not because I was lazy, I didn't work hard enough. I could never live with that. I could never live with that. And that is where I'm in to say that this is the most interesting and most exciting and energetic project I ever had in my life. And of course, as I said, I love the energy about money. Not what people are ready to do to get it, like you see here. Cheat, fraud, do bad things to other people. But I love the energy of what money can do. And could you imagine a guy like me who has the heart in the right place and is very helpful to everybody with $1 billion in his account? I will be a gift to the whole world, because I will be assisting and helping people all around the world with money. They will not be sitting in a bank account in Switzerland putting interest. They'll be out there in the whole world working to make this world into a better place. And that is what I'm most excited about my future, is that I get the chance, when I get my rightful payment now for what I've done, is that I'm able to make this place into a better place for people right next to me, but also for thousands of people around the world. When I had my money in Pandora in the old days, I basically entertained the whole country with my sports teams. I paid for it. And I entertained, we had television viewers like nobody else ever had in the business. And I paid for it, but I was fine with that. It was my gift. For me, it was not much money, but the whole Denmark was sitting watching this game. We had the two of the games that year where the year before we closed, was the most viewed TV programs of Denmark. So that's just so people understand the magnitude that these projects had. And I didn't mind that. That's what I want to do in the future, to change the world into a better place. But right now, my focus is 100% in winning these cases. It's actually the arbitration case that is interesting, because that's the 1.3 billion. And it's rising every single day with the interest that's running, and I have them right by the neck, They can't reply to us. They can't reply my lawyers. They can't reply the court. They can't reply the journalists, because there is no reply to why they took 2 billion away from that company.
Seeing it from my eyes, if there's someone asking me for something which I know I have done right, I will personally very easily say, hey, here you can see the numbers, here you can see the data, you can see everything. Here's the response. Not done anything wrong.
Is there anything else you want to see?
Yeah, you can see everything. Come here, see it. We can solve it. That's just very easily.
Life is not difficult. Yeah. Life is not difficult. So of course I will not let them go, because I know they will make it difficult for me. I tried that in the Metax case. They will make it difficult for me to get there. I know that.
How has the support been from? Because all of these cases, I know the medias in Denmark has been slaughtering you the first time with the tax thing, which you ended up winning. And the media, not just in Denmark, but in general, likes to slaughter people who earn a lot of money. And they're very left-wing, and obviously has been going very directly after you. How has support been from friends, family? Has all of them always trusted in you, or was there friends that switched up when they read news articles?
No, it's very up and down all the time. Basically they trust me, but it's very difficult for normal people who are not in the media world to understand how it works. Of course, guys like me who's been in the media world for 15 years, we know how it works. So when we read about Trump or we read about Elon Musk and these issues or big politics and we read differently than you guys do, because we know how they are doing, these leftist journalists. And of course, for a guy like me in Denmark, I'm not very likable by a journalist working in a newspaper, because, I'm very straightforward. Many people likes me. And actually right now we're producing a documentary about the whole case in Denmark. And the journalist that is doing it, he asked me, he talked to all the journalists in Denmark to say, why is it actually that you are not looking at the case that Jesper has, but more on him as a person? And they say, you met him, they say, did you meet him? He always asks him. Yes, we met him, many of them say. And he's actually quite likable, they say. That's the problem. That makes it difficult for us. But his person is too difficult for us to manage. And he says things sometimes that is not really true yet, because I'm very much ahead of the future, And therefore he's an easy target. And we just know when we put his name in and write something negative, we just will have a clicks like never before. And that is why we do it, because he is very, very, if you meet him as a person, many of them say, there is no person in the world we'd rather go to a dinner with as Jesper, because he's very funny and nice and very caring and looking after everybody and everything is fine. But he's just too much for Denmark, And that is also what Pandora indicates. I'm too much. It's too much for Denmark, this. And you talked about Pandora and as a brand, and I think besides being proud of that every woman in the world knows about us, it's the second thing I'm most proud of is that 1.5 years ago on the Interglobal brand recognition list in the world, where they take the 100 biggest brands of the world.
That's like the most recognizable brands, the biggest brands, right?
It's like the Bible for
Apple,
brands. Yeah,
label.
Apple is number one, and it is the most Bible. And of course, when I started in Pandora in 2001 and 2, I couldn't dream about it. I didn't even know that this list existed. But as we moved on, of course, we start to get a dream of one day maybe we could be in this top 100 list of the biggest brands in the world. And 1.5 years ago, we entered for the first time. And we maintain our position as number 95 in the world as the most recognized brand in the world. And just built out of a little suburb in Copenhagen like 22 years ago, that is something that makes the three of us that did it extremely proud. And I have to remember these things when you do all these battles. Always remember also what you did. So of course that's something that is very, very motivating for me also to know that it is so accepted. And there is only 2 Danish brands on this list, as you talk about. It's Lego and it's Pandora. It's just to put it into the perspective what it was that we did with Pandora, And that is also the reason why I will never give up on the case like this, because this is in my DNA. Pandora is only there because I didn't give up when I got the first 10 no's, by the jewelry stores or by when I had to open the first Pandora stores. They laughed at me and they said, you don't have a bracelet, you're a little bit stupid, this man, yeah? You're coming in here, you want to open a concept shop, a flagship store. Jesper, Nielsen, you're very funny, you have funny clothes, you're funny. But you only have a bracelet, don't you? And I remember I met the exact same guy 4 years later at a big conference where I was the keynote speaker, because we opened 80 stores in 4 years, which was they've never seen before in Germany. Yeah? And he started by introducing me, telling this story, and he said, I can just say something. Sometimes one bracelet is enough, if it's the right bracelet and the right man. And of course, he trusted in me. He gave me a bad position in the first couple of malls I got into. But later on, of course, I fought myself up to the right positions because my numbers were good and we were performing. But this with being a part of the top 100 brands in the world, I asked chat for fun, how many are still alive who built these brands? And it was 35. So you can speak to 35 people alive who built a top 100 global brand. And I'm pretty proud that I'm one of them, So that is, of course, something that makes you extremely proud. But that's not well seen in Denmark. As the man producing my documentary, he says, Jesper, you can't say these things. You can get other people to say that about you because it's so not Danish.
Yeah, in Denmark, you cannot really talk highly about yourself, then you get there.
When I say, why don't Danish businessmen come and want to talk to me 24 hours,
Yeah.
Because how can you ever meet a man who built a global top 100 brand, and he's alive, he's only 56 years old. You can sit, you can talk to him, he can still remember.
Yeah.
Why don't you pick his brain to see how he did it, yeah?
And as we talked about, there's many different opinions of you. People like you, people dislike you without knowing you, people loving you, and all of these kind of opinions. What is, when one day you're not here anymore, what is a thing or different things that you will like everyone to remember about you, even if they like you or dislike you?
I always said when I was a young man, I wish that the day I die, that it will be in the front page of the newspapers. I think I achieved that. The day I will not be here anymore, I will be in the front page of all newspapers.
What will you like to people to be think about you? And
I want to be known as somebody who did things differently. I want to be known as one of the Pandora founders. I want to be known as the man who won huge tax cases. I want to be known as a billionaire who beat my own company after losing the first time. Then I came back and won again. I want to be known then for the next 40 years of my life, because I take good care of myself, as you know, that he was really changing the world into a better place. He was helping everybody around him. Entrepreneurs, people who was twisted in the court cases around the world. I want to have a whole institution helping people around that. Simply just being, and I hope that if there is a court case 15 years from now somewhere in the world, where somebody has been squeezed by the state or by a big company and he don't have the funds to continue the case, and we come and they will say, you have to be careful because Casey is looking at that case. And if he comes in, you know what happens, you know what he's like, you saw the Netflix, you saw what he's like, you saw the documentaries, you know what this guy is like. He is not stopping until justice has been served. And that is what I want to be known for, that justice has been served.
I can say that personally. Even I had a very small case, but with someone who is also trying to screw me over. And I texted you for some advice. I think that was going 3 or 4 hours, and I received the money in my bank account from the person who tried to screw me over. So I can personally see how actually willing you are to help people with that. And that was a huge help for me as well. So I can definitely see how that is something you're really passionate about and can help others with.
And I try to do a thing like this, Jacob, every day. Every day I try to help somebody in a difficult situation somewhere with what I can. And can you imagine me also having $1 billion in my account? How much I could help?
Then you'll be able to help a lot more.
And that is what I like to do. Yes. I like to help. I like to support. And with my knowledge and my journey, I can help a lot of people, not just business people. I can help. I know a lot about court cases. I know a lot about the mechanisms, how the state is functioning and all these things. So of course I've learned a lot of things over the years. And I would love that the end of this journey, now I'm having this exciting project with the court case, and I like that it's the biggest in the world, It's always like this, I do big statements, I built the biggest jewelry company in the world, Very crazy. I built the biggest handball company in the world. I won the 2 biggest private tax cases of Denmark, and now I'm running the biggest arbitration case ever in the world between a company and a private man. You see how monumental things I'm trying to do all this. I know it's difficult. And as my mom always said to me, couldn't we just be number 2 or 3? Why we have to be number 1? I said, I don't know. But if we can be number 1, let's be number 1, But maybe we'll be okay if we just be number 4 or 5. That's not how I function. So I get motivated by monumental. And that is also when I can help people, it is what fuels me, gives me energy to help people and assist people. In small cases like yours, it took me not long to fix this. Because of course I have a name. and I have a word when I'm saying things, you know. I have the most followed LinkedIn profile of my country. So I have a word. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
I think I just sent a message. You said copy and paste this message where I said something like, case Jesper is taking over the case from here. All communication should be through him. And then so like it went so quickly and the money was in my account, and I was dealing with this person for I think 4 or 5 months without him paying, and then 3 hours after that was incredible.
Yeah, but can you imagine that in a bigger scale? How I could help everybody around me because Casey is looking at it, and I know exactly how to play these games, you know, because I have a lot of knowledge about people and empathy. You know, when you have to have many people work for you, and especially in the period of time where I had absolutely no money, it's another challenge again. Then you have to work on other parameters, you know. So that is something that I would really love to work into after my arbitration case had finished. But first of all, of course, my full focus at the arbitration case. This was what we had. There was a little funny sidekick. Yeah. But basically, I try to get up every day and do a good thing, you know. Like when we were walking up here, I said that I have twin daughters, Matilda and Selma, and they turn 18 on Sunday, you know. And I just organized now for her the party Saturday night in Mallorca where she lives, yeah. And I like that, you know. She won. I could also say, no, I want you to be with me that day, you know. But I also know for her, she's a social butterfly, this girl, yeah, that she could invite 20 people to a bar in Palma and be even more happy than sitting with her father in a restaurant where she actually don't want to be. I have so much empathy on her, you know. So I said, okay, then we maybe make the dinner late Sunday when you wake up after your party. And she invited 20 friends, you know. And I like every day you have to do something good for other people, you know. That is, and at the moment I'm on a holiday down here with my grandchildren, my first 2 grandchildren, you know. And 3 weeks. It's not like 2 days. It's 3 weeks. So this is also, of course, another part that I want to do in the future. Be the perfect, you know, family man, which I always strive to be. But it has been very difficult because I have been fighting so hard against so strong opponents all the time. Yeah. But that is when I sit with 80 years old. I wish that I have, and now I have 5 kids, 2 grandchildren. If each of my 5 kids would have 3 kids each, I have 15 grandchildren. Could you imagine sitting somewhere with your 15 grandchildren? Being everything is under control, everything is fine, and that would be a great dream for me to go. Also because I know that I did remarkable things in my life, you know. I know there's going to be, especially if I win my case, there's going to be a lot of things about me in the future, and I'll take it. Not because I like it, because what many people do not know is I'm actually quite introvert. But I have accepted that I have to be extrovert in order to get things done. And I'm also aware that I have to do this things in order to get the voice that can bring me to that. Denmark is a little bit burnt soil. We have to accept that they were very hard to me in the Danish media as always. And many of my friends, they say, why are they doing that? You know, you never did anything wrong. I won my tax cases. I never. But this is just the narrative that is running because I'm so different that they can't get their hands around me. Yeah, but it'll get worse in the future. I say, with $1 billion in my account, I'll get even worse.
Thank you for the conversation, Jesper.
Great.
I think it was a very great conversation we had. If people who are listening here want to follow your case, want to get some updates on it, where should they find you and follow you?
Go in and find me on the LinkedIn profile, Jesper Casey Nielsen, Jesper Nielsen Pandora. Or we also have a homepage called, they can just Google Casey and the Pandora case. And then they find we have a homepage which is also in English.
Here in the description as well for everything.
Which is in English. So that's maybe the best place to follow it, yeah. We even created our own homepage for a court case, yeah.
That is, thank you very much,
Thank
Jesper.
you very much.